In this video, we are going to cover pseudocode. First, we are going to discuss what pseudocodes are. Then we will cover the advantages and disadvantages of using pseudocode. We will also talk about how they are used in conjunction with code comments, as well as some basic guidelines on when and when not to use code comments and pseudocode. A pseudocode is an informal way of describing what the code does. It doesn't compile because its purpose is to make the pseudocode understandable to humans, even non-programmers. A pseudocode can often be found alongside the actual source code it is trying to describe. Now, let's take a look at a few examples. You don't need to understand yet what this code does. To a non-programmer, this would look like something that is written in an obscure language. Through some code comments, we can insert some pseudocodes to give information on what this code actually does. Here is our second example. We use a multi-line comment to indicate that the code sends an order to the trade server. For simple source codes, this is often enough, although we may want to add more details by making additional comments. Here is our third example. We added some information at almost every step of the way. So even a non-programmer or a beginning programmer would be able to understand what the code actually does. Now, let's go to the advantages and disadvantages. Pseudocode are generally easier to understand and easier to remember. When examining code, in most cases, what we would usually want is to have a background understanding of what a particular portion of a source code does. Using pseudocode can be helpful in this case, so we no longer need to the entire source code just to figure out what it actually does. Its disadvantage, however, is that it tends to make the source code noisy. This can become troublesome, especially if one is already working on a large project. It also makes the source code files larger. In this course, using pseudocode and code comments are highly encouraged, but optional. Your code would still compile even without any of these two. It is better to use code comments when working with very complex systems, or when working with other programmers or traders. You can also use them to make a note to your future self, so that you can easily remember where you left off the last time you worked with the source code. These are just some general guidelines. Use or not use at your own discretion. To recap, we discussed what pseudocode is, as well as its advantages and disadvantages. We also covered how it is used along with code comments. There are also some basic guidelines on when or when not to use them, but use at your own discretion.